Hello everyone. In this video lesson we're going to do some listening practice and I'm going to explain some vocabulary that will be very useful for you when you do the listening practice that you will have to hand in as homework. Alright? So let's get started. For this lesson you're going to need page 54. If you don't have it, it will be in the Files folder in our team. And then you're going to need page 40 to do the listening practice that you will have to hand in. All right? So first of all, let's warm up. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and the idea is that you answer them spontaneously. If you could be someone else for one day, who would you like to be? What do you think you would learn from that experience, from being that someone else? If you want to answer these questions now, what you can do is pause the video, do this short task, and then play the video again. But be ready to answer these live when we meet next. Let's continue. Now we're going to do the activities on page 54. So on page 54, you've got activity 2 and it says, work in pairs. You're going to hear a conversation about a writer changing her name. Read questions 1 and 2. What kind of information are you listening for? Reasons, beliefs, and attitudes, or facts and information? Which words in the questions tell you this? So take a minute to read these two questions and the options and tell me, what kind of information are you listening for and which words tell you this? Okay, so number 1 says, why does the woman think J.K. Rowling chose to write under a man's name? And question 2 says, what do they both think about what Rowling did? So what kind of information are we looking for? For number 1, you're listening for reasons. And for number 2, you're listening for beliefs and attitudes. And which words tell you this? For 1, you have why, think, hoped, wanted, expected, right? Hoped, wanted, and expected are from the options. And then for number 2, you have what, think, and from the options you've got should be, admired, development, and good. All right? This is something that you should always do with the questions that belong to a listening piece, because it will help you then focus your attention on the specific information that you need to be able to answer the questions. Now let's move on to exercise 3. You're going to listen to the conversation now. Was the author's name change successful? So just listen to answer this question.
Conversation 1. You hear a conversation about a writer using a pen name.
I've just read that novel that J.K. Rowling published under a pseudonym, Robert Galbraith. Do you remember?
Yes. I never understood why she did that when she makes so much money as herself. And it's odd she chose a man's name. I'm not sure what she was trying to prove.
Apparently, she claims it's been a liberating experience, though I'm not convinced that's why she did it. I suspect she wanted to see if an author's gender meant it sold more copies, though I think her publishers claim it was because it was an adult novel.
It's quite common though, isn't it? I mean, historically, writers have often used another name when they're going to write in a different way, and if it's not the same genre, then that makes sense.
Well, she had good reviews, and I think people respect her for wanting to receive honest criticism, and she's really tried to do something different. I think the story's quite unusual.
Good for her. She could have just written more of the same and been sure of her income.
I'm not sure I believe it all, though. I'm sure the publishers and Rowling knew the truth wouldn't stay buried, but she's certainly upped her game and proved she can write in different styles.
All right, so what do you think? Was the author's name change successful? Yes, it was. Very good. Now, let's move on to the exam tip. Multiple choice short texts. We often understand opinions, feelings, and attitude from several phrases rather than one word. Look at this extract from the conversation. Apparently, she claims it's been a liberating experience, though I'm not convinced that's why she did it. I suspect she wanted to see if an author's gender meant it sold more copies, though I think her publishers claim it was because it was an adult novel. Which words give the answer to question 1 in exercise 2 below? Why does the woman think J.K. Rowling chose to write under a man's name? I suspect she wanted to see if an author's gender meant it sold more copies. So that's the whole phrase that would give you the answer. All right? So this is a good exercise for you to apply when you do some listening. Now let's move on to exercise 4. Now you're going to listen again and answer questions 1 and 2 from exercise 2.
I've just read that novel that J.K. Rowling published under a pseudonym, Robert Galbraith. Do you remember?
Yes, I never understood why she did that when she makes so much money as herself. And it's odd she chose a man's name. I'm not sure what she was trying to prove.
Apparently, she claims it's been a liberating experience, though I'm not convinced that's why she did it. I suspect she wanted to see if an author's gender meant it sold more copies, though I think her publishers claim it was because it was an adult novel.
It's quite common though, isn't it? I mean, historically, writers have often used another name when they're going to write in a different way, and if it's not the same genre, then that makes sense.
Well, she had good reviews, and I think people respect her for wanting to receive honest criticism, and she's really tried to do something different. I think the story's quite unusual.
Good for her. She could have just written more of the same and been sure of her income.
I'm not sure I believe it all, though. I'm sure the publishers and Rowling knew the truth wouldn't stay buried, but she's certainly upped her game and proved she can write in different styles.
All right, so let's check. Number 1, what's the correct answer? It's C. She expected it to have an impact on sales. And what about number 2? It's A. She should be admired for taking a risk. All right. Now let's move on to exercise 5. You're going to hear 2 more conversations about identity. Read the questions and decide what kind of information you're listening for. Then listen and choose the answer A, B, or C, which fits best according to what you hear. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to give you some seconds to read questions 3 and 4 and then 5 and 6. So pause the video now, read questions 3 and 4, and when you're ready, press play again because I'm going to change the screen to questions 5 and 6. All right, so now I'm going to go back to 3 and 4. Now you're going to listen, all right, and choose the answer A, B, or C, which fits best according to what you hear. At the end of the listening piece, what I'm going to do is show you to what minute in the video you need to go back in case you need to listen to this once more, all right? But now, let's listen.
Conversation 2. You hear a radio discussion between 2 psychologists about an experiment for a man, Mark Farid, to copy someone else's life.
So let's talk about this crazy project that's been in the news recently. Mark Farid set out to recruit someone who would be willing to video stream his whole life for 28 days while Farid copied what that person did. The plan was that Mark would watch that video stream as it was happening, while an audience watched him doing exactly the same things. What he suggested was that being somebody else for 28 days would allow him insights into the debate over whether nature or nurture causes a person to be how they are. In fact, it went further than that because Farid hoped to see whether he would start thinking like the other person too. Some research suggests that the brain can adapt surprisingly quickly to living as somebody else, so Farid wanted to see how far this was true.
OK, but I'm like others in the academic community who've been uncomfortable because they've been concerned about how such a lengthy project would affect Farid's mental well-being. I wasn't convinced it would be useful, but in the end it all came to nothing. Farid struggled to secure the enormous amount of funding he needed because there were so many ethical issues, so the project was abandoned. But this idea is an interesting one.
Conversation 3. You hear a man and a woman talking about leisure activities.
Whenever I'm watching a game on TV, my wife always says, "Why do you watch other people live their lives instead of living yours?" And it's true. By the time I've caught up with what friends are doing online and watched some television, I don't have much space left over for my own life.
But I think we all do that, no?
Yeah, but it's become an obsession now. Like people who watch soap operas and think those people really exist, or that they're friends with them. I binge watched a TV series, and I thought I lived in that world, and then my life seemed so flat.
But don't you think it's the same with books? And people are not so critical of that. I mean, you can lose yourself in a good story and escape from real life. That's been true for centuries. People love stories. I suppose the difference is you're kind of active. You do use your imagination. It's not fed to you on a plate. I agree nowadays people obsess over celebrities and copy them, or think they can be part of their lives, but I don't see the problem. I mean, if you play fantasy football, are you being yourself, or are you someone else? You're not a football manager, you are you.
All right, so now you will see on the screen to what minute you need to go back in case you want to listen to both conversations again. Right now, what we're going to do is check. So, for question 3, what have you chosen? The correct answer is B, to see if we could develop a new understanding on a scientific debate. And this is what the person says. The kind of information you're looking for is a reason, and what he suggested was that being somebody else for 28 days would allow him insights into the debate over whether nature or nurture causes a person to be how they are. In fact, it went further than that, because Farid hoped to see whether he would start thinking like the other person. So that's what gave you the answer. What about number 4? What's the correct one? What do you think? It's A, unsure that it was worthwhile. The kind of information you're looking for is a feeling. She says, I wasn't convinced it would be useful. As simple as that. Let's see 5 and 6. What's your choice for 5? It's C, the way he spends his free time. The kind of information you're looking for is, in this case, a problem. By the time I've caught up with what friends are doing online and watched some television, I don't have much space left over for my own life. And what about 6? It's A, to contradict the man. But don't you think it's the same with books? I mean, you can lose yourself in a good story and escape from real life. That's been true for centuries. People love stories. And the kind of information you're looking for is a purpose. Okay. So now let's continue and do exercise 6. These phrases that you see over here, 1 through 5, all appeared in the listening pieces that you have just listened to. So now what you have to do is match the phrases in bold in the sentences 1 to 5 with their meanings to see if, from the context, you remember what they mean. Phrase number 1 is, she really upped her game. So what is to up your game? Number 2 is, I went further than that. What is to go further? It all came to nothing. What does that mean? I get caught up in what others are doing. What is to get caught up in something? And he was handed his success on a plate. You've got from A to E the meanings. So take a minute, pause the video if you need to, and then press play again to check. So let's see. So she really upped her game. Which of the different meanings is the correct one? That's right, is to improve the way you do something. It went further than that. What is that? That's right, to be more extensive, to do more, to cover more. It all came to nothing. It's C, have no significant or successful result. I get caught up in what others are doing. It's B, to be involved in, to be attracted by. And finally we have on a plate, without putting in any effort. So if you're handed something on a plate, it means that you did nothing to get that. All right. So this is some vocabulary. Then in exercise 7, you've got a speaking task, and we're going to do this one the following week. I'm going to read the questions anyhow. It says, work in pairs and discuss the questions. How interested are you in other people's lifestyles? For example, celebrities or friends. Why? Are you more interested in people who are similar to you or different from you? And why? So be ready to answer these 2 questions the following week. Now that we've finished with that, what we're going to do is see some vocabulary that will be useful for you to solve the listening tasks on page 40. All right, so let's see this vocabulary. First, I'm going to show you some interesting nouns that you will come across while you listen. The first one is the word sense. I'm sure you've heard this word before. Sense is a general feeling or understanding of something, all right? The one thing that I'd like to clarify is that the meanings that you're going to see now are the meanings that correspond to the ones used in the listening piece. But you should be aware of the fact that these words may have other meanings. And here we've got an example. Did you get any sense of how they might react? One important thing about the word sense is that for this meaning, it's typically accompanied by the preposition of, to get a sense of something or to make sense of something. I'm sure you've heard the expression, does that make any sense to you? Another word that you will come across is the word court, and this word is connected to the justice system, a place where trials and other legal cases happen. She's threatening to take me to court for not paying the bill on time. The important thing about this word also is that it typically comes together with the verb take. So you take someone to court, or you are taken to court if you use it in the passive voice. Another interesting noun is the noun peer. I don't know if you know this one. A peer is a person who is the same age or has the same social position, abilities as other people in a group. So for example, at school, your classmates will also be your peers. Teenage girls are less self-confident than their male peers. This is just an example. We may debate that. All right? Let's see some other nouns. The word fuss. I don't know if you've heard this one. I'm sure you have. A show of anger, worry, or excitement that is unnecessary or greater than the situation deserves. She made such a fuss when Richard spilled a drop of wine on her blouse. The important thing here is that the word fuss is usually accompanied by make. So you make a fuss. All right. Have you ever made a fuss of something? I'm sure you have. Another word is the word heritage. Important features belonging to the culture of a particular society, for example, traditions, language, etc. The organization is devoted to preserving our cultural heritage. So what things are part of our cultural heritage? What do you think? I would say asado, mate, for example, typical foods, typical dishes of our country. Those are part of our heritage. Then another word is the word awkwardness. You will see that this word ends in the suffix ness, and when this happens, that means that that word is a noun. So words in English that end in ness are nouns. Awkwardness is basically embarrassment or something that is not relaxed. For example, the internet removes the awkwardness of a face-to-face interaction. All right? Pay attention to the spelling of awkwardness, all right? It's quite complicated, a lot of consonants there in the middle. Then you will come across some interesting verbs. For example, ridicule, which can also be a noun, all right? But in this case, it will be used as a verb. And it means to laugh at someone in an unkind way. She rarely spoke her mind out of fear of being ridiculed by her peers. He was ridiculed for his ideas. This verb, ridicule, is typically used in the passive voice. Alright, so you will see it accompanied by the verb to be, and then something that is important is that it will come together with the prepositions by or for depending on what follows. It will be by if what follows is the person that ridicules, and then it will be for if what follows is the thing that causes you to be ridiculed. So you're ridiculed for something or for doing something, and you're ridiculed by someone. Okay? Then another interesting verb that you will come across is the verb overrule, and this is connected to court that you saw before. To make a decision that opposes and changes another decision. This is something that judges typically do. The judge was constantly overruling the objections of the prosecution. Okay? Overrule is a kind of a formal verb, but you can use it as well. For example, at home, you ask your dad for permission to do something, and then your mom comes and overrules that decision, and suddenly you cannot do that thing. That's something that typically happened to me and my siblings at home. Then another verb is the verb retain. To keep or continue to have something. So if you associate retain with keep, it's pretty simple and easy to remember. She has lost her battle to retain control of the company. Or she has lost her battle to keep control of the company. It's the same meaning, they're synonyms. All right? You will also come across some interesting phrasal verbs. Come up with. To suggest or think of an idea or plan. She's come up with some amazing scheme to double her income. So basically, when you come up with something, you think of something that is a good idea or a good plan. Notice that it has two prepositions. Then we've got settle in. To become familiar with somewhere, especially if that somewhere is new, like a house, a job, or a school, and to feel comfortable and happy there. Once we've settled in, we'll have you over for dinner. This is an example of someone who is settling in a new house, evidently, all right? But if someone comes to school, someone new, maybe it takes that person some time to settle in. That is, to feel welcome, to feel comfortable, to be happy in that new school. And then we have single out. In this case, typically you have the thing or the person that you single out between the verb and the preposition. To choose one person or thing from a group for special attention, especially criticism or praise. So for two extremes, either something very, very good or very, very bad. It's not fair the way my sister is always singled out for special treatment. That is chosen, right? This person's sister is always chosen for special treatment. Then we've got some expressions that you will listen to while you do the tasks. One of them is to rack your brains. To rack your brains means to think very hard. I've been racking my brains all day, but I can't remember her name. Instead of saying, I've been thinking really hard, you can say, I've been racking my brains. And it's a very cool expression. I really like this one. Then you've got come or get to grips with something. To make an effort to understand and deal with a problem or situation. I can't seem to get to grips with this problem. Or I can't seem to come to grips with this problem. This person can't understand this thing, right? It's a very difficult thing to do. And then on the spur of the moment, this is one I really, really like. Sudden and done without any planning. We just jumped in a car on the spur of the moment and drove to the seaside. So when you do something suddenly without much thinking or planning, it's something that you do on the spur of the moment. All right? Finally, we've got some miscellaneous phrases or words. The first one is AKA. AKA is an abbreviation that I'm sure you know, also known as, used when someone has another name. This is especially seen with famous people. For example, Stephanie, Joanne, Angelina, Germanota, also known as, or AKA, Lady Gaga. Another one is the adjective catchy. pleasing and easy to remember. A song with catchy lyrics. We can have catchy words, catchy phrases, catchy melodies, catchy tunes. That's typically the way you use these. All right? So, with all this information, what you've got to do now is the listening practice on page 40. You will get the audio through the team, and you will get a form that you will have to complete. All right? You will get this form. It looks like this. And you will have to record the answers to the listening tasks in the form. Okay? So you can do them on paper and then pass them, and then you can do them on paper and then record the answers on the form, or you can go directly to the form and work simultaneously listening to the audio and giving your answers. All right? Page 40 also has an additional task with some vocabulary that we are probably going to check on our following video lesson. All right? So thank you very much for listening, for watching this video. Keep up the hard work and see you soon. Bye!